On Saturday, Kenya marked 56 years of internal self-rule. We were in Narok. President Uhuru Kenyatta had an opportunity to tell Kenyans quite a number of things. And he also wanted Kenyans to be happy people, to deal with happy news, good news, even as we deal with the bad news. He also spoke quite at length about the Big Four agenda and particularly that housing question. And so, the speech, what did you guys think of President Uhuru Kenyatta's speech? In fact, I saw even the off-cuff remarks were written. He read them.
In Kiswahili kwanza, yeah.
In Kiswahili.
I noticed that, yeah. Yeah.
No, I think what you've just said is the fact that he really insisted on people need to be happy. But when people were speaking afterwards, were saying, what is there to be happy about? What is there to be happy for? There's looting in the country. You know, corruption is a main issue. Even research has shown that one of the main issues that people are really worried about or upset about in this country is the looting and the fact that money is being stolen left, right, and center. We keep talking about billions being lost now and not millions. They talk about Huduma number and the fact that they had to do it and they were not sure why they were doing it. They talk about the housing levy. They talk about how they go to hospitals and they're unable to get medicine despite there being the rollout for afya bora kwa wote and all that. But now, well, that optimism that the president was trying to bring in his speech is well and good, but it needs to translate into actual action that yes, we are doing something about it. He spoke quite at length about the killings and the femicide and the murders that you're witnessing, and makes you worry about the value of life, how people don't value life anymore. Someone's ears were cut off because she had something she wasn't supposed to. A lady sewed up her child's mouth for saying something wasn't supposed to. You hear someone killing the other, and it's almost every single day in our bulletins when you're trying to discuss the running order, you have stories of people killing each other. Human life is not being valued anymore. And some of the issues that the president was talking about, and you wonder about how you can be happy and optimistic about it. But let us talk about how the president was trying to highlight the good in us during his speech, and then we can continue.
We get angry as we struggle and then read in the newspapers stories about the next general election days after the previous one, or corruption and abuse of office, knowing that money stolen comes from our taxes. We can at times feel like despairing when the good news of our country's progress comes a distant third to bad news and never-ending politicking and name-calling. But I want to urge every Kenyan, and particularly those in the media and in leadership positions, to also shine a light on what is good, even as they identify what is holding us back. To take time to cultivate a sense of national pride by giving equal prominence to the myriad of positive and uplifting stories that showcase how great a people we are.
Interesting. I mean, and probably to a great extent I would agree with the president that we need to tell the happy story out there. But you see, that happiness must resonate with the reality. Are Kenyans happy?
They have to be happy.
Are they happy when they hear their money is being looted? Are they happy when they go to hospitals and they can't find medicine? Are they happy when their children cannot access quality education? Are they happy when they see the cabinet secretary and the NAT bosses, tear at each other? So there must be a reason for happiness.
I think when you listen to this, you can't help but remember the words of the epigraph of the timeless play by Nikolai Gogol,
the government
inspector, that when your face is crooked, you do not blame the mirror. So you actually look at the mirror and see your crooked face, and then you say,
fix it.
What is wrong with you, mirror? But I think that, so there's a sense in which that is happening in our country, where the president is feeling the frustration, like, hey, how is it that everything out here is so negative? But the truth is that there's a lot of negativity that is going on in our country right now. There is so much upheaval in the social scene where people are killing, and like what Jamila was talking about, there is upheaval in the political circles where politicians are tearing at each other. every day you hear billions have been stolen, and so there is bad news all around. But I think that every time we see a glimmer of good news, we usually focus on it. When Peter Tabichi was named the world teacher #1, I think it was a very big conversation that went on in the country.
And all
People
media houses
invited
were
in
falling
studios
over
and everything.
And all our Victoria's marathons,
all of these things,
longer than any
and
news
they are
bulletin,
usually
live.
top stories. So I think that there's a sense in which the country craves for the good news, only that we don't get enough of it, I think.
And I think, Joe, the president answers his own concerns in one soundbite. If Robert can give it to us, the president's concern over depression and suicide. Let's listen to him.
I have noted with extreme sadness and profound concern the recent rise in reported cases of suicides and homicides in the country, particularly femicides. Indeed, as your president and also as a husband, father, and grandfather, it does pain me to see the distress and anguish in the faces of family members who are left behind by one who felt the life offered them no other option. Fellow Kenyans, depression has today become a common phenomenon, and it affects persons from all walks of life and ages. I urge employers and institutions of learning to invest more time and resources in monitoring and facilitating the mental well-being of their charges. And I therefore direct the Ministry of Health in consultation with county governments, the Ministry of Education, Labor and Social Protection and Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs, to formulate an appropriate policy response.
And there you have it. Some of the concerns, some of the things that inform the context of the country, really bad news. And I think what we need to address as a country is how can we generate positive news? Because the media, like you say, Joe, is just holding a mirror to society. And not every of those suicides, not every of those homicides have even been reported by the media. Some of them go
actually these days, honestly, these days it's agonizing. Actually, you're thinking like, okay, do we still carry this story? I mean, like yesterday we had this and the day after and all of that, and you struggle with how much prominence you should give those stories, because at the same time it is depressing to just keep watching all these things that happen.
Our sister station in Oro TV last night and tonight
they're doing a series.
Brilliant features. Very sad though, by Wawero Wanyambura. There's a village in Nyandaro County called Shamata. 76 people have committed suicide in the last few months. Why? Because of hopelessness. They cannot make a living. And they were saying they used to make a living out of selling their potatoes. At a whole sack is going for about 500 shillings.
What?
They cannot make ends meet.
So I mean, a whole sack?
A whole sack, 500 shillings. And so the young people who used to work in farms and so on and so forth cannot make a living out of it. So the frustrations, the depression, when you tell them they need to be happy, they will ask you to be happy about what? Yet there are pertinent issues that the government can deal with at the local level and at the national level. I mean, for example, the question of the price of such commodities, such food, why would brokers have a field day? I mean, reaping from the sweat of the farmers out there to go and buy a whole sack for 500 shillings, 1,000 shillings, then bring it to Nairobi and sell it for thousands. So if the government wants Kenyans to be happy, they must give them reason to be happy.
Fix it. Here's another thing about giving people a reason to be happy, and that is those pending bills. And that was what caught my eye in the President's Madaraka Day speech. So he's made the directive, or given the directive, that all pending bills should be paid before the end of the financial year, which is, by the way, before the end of this month. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are with collections. We will, the collections are at 70%. You know, and you know that you speak about this all the time. By April this year, we were hardly at 70% collection, roughly 2 months to the end of the year. We were to collect 500 billion shillings between April and June. That's 250 billion shillings a month. However, there's constantly pick about 100 billion shillings a month. Don't forget, we're at the end of the financial year where things slow down, people are not spending as much. The county governments themselves have spending bills of about 70 billion.
And remember, 8 billion.
Exactly. And remember, the supplementary budget reduced the amounts of money that were going to the national and the county government. Also remember that on June 15th, IFMIS shuts down, so there is no spending. So even if the county governments and the national governments have money, there is no way they're going to issue that. Today is the 6th, so there's 9 days to do this. When are they going to do this? Is this another statement in futility? And these are some of the things that make Kenyans frustrated. Kenyans have been doing business with the national government. Kenyans have been doing business with the county government, supplying things, and they have not been paid to date, and they're taking loans for it. That is what caught my eye. In addition, of course, there was also what the president had to say about that other thing that is causing Kenyans a bit of heartache, the housing fund levy. So let's listen to what he had to say about that. Talking about, there were some hiccups, there were some hurdles, but seems like the president is hopeful. Listen.
Fellow Kenyans, the housing fund is a second entity through which the delivery of affordable housing programs shall be supported. The creation of the fund was informed by the need to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots by creating a framework through which the traditionally unbanked can access financing towards home ownership. Unfortunately, the implementation of the housing fund levy as a mandatory contribution for both employees and employers has at every turn been fraught with legal hurdles and obstacles. It is my hope that these hurdles will be overcome without further undue delay to ensure implementation. This will allow all Kenyans who wish to take advantage of this life-changing initiative to realize their dream of owning a modern, decent home.
So, something that Kenyans, or at least some of them, a section of them, are frustrated with.
It's true, they are frustrated because that push and pull, remember, 1.5%, I didn't ask for a house, I want a cow, I want a camel, I want money.
It's a lottery.
It's a lottery.
But it's also important to mention that this is still doing its rounds
all over
in the legal circles.
Yes.
We don't even know where it will land.
Which is why it's curious, Joe, and sorry for cutting in, why the president marches on when this issue is in question in court.
Which is what I was going to say, that this is interesting, that it formed a good part of his speech, almost talking, well, there are hiccups, but we are going on, not to say like, well, we'll need to hear what the court says. I think that is instructive, but that is a question that I don't think even the courts, after they pronounce themselves, will just go away. I think it's a big conversation. The question of whether housing is really one of the biggest things that concern a lot of people that Ashuri has just been talking about. I'm not too sure whether housing is their biggest thing, decent housing and everything, and people who already have their houses and they're looking for other things in life, but you're going to put this whole thing around their necks and say you have to.
But Joseph, actually the government spokesman today said that come September there will be actually some people who will move into the government homes. About 228 of them will actually be able to move into the homes. I think Linus, you read a bit about that.
The people can move, yes, but you see, I mean, what is at issue is not whether people should move into homes or whether they should have houses. The question is whether we should all be forced, literally, to pay. I think that is what is even before the courts. I mean, the government, if it finds other ways of paying for these things by September and whatever, it's a different story, I think.
I think the one uphill task for the president on this issue is the way it's perceived. It's perceived as a forced gift. You have to have affordable housing. You pointed out correctly, nobody asked for housing. You see, President Mwai Kibaki came up with a program that you can logically place, slum upgrading project, where you go to Kibera and try and upgrade that to proper houses. When you look at the affordable housing program, it targets people who are classified as social housing, those who are earning below 19,000. Then there's low cost, that is 20,000 to 49,000. Mortgage gap, 50,000 to 149, and then middle to high income, 150,000 and above. Basically, I don't see how this program is going to really reach the have-nots that the president is talking about. because a lot of the have-nots do not even earn the 19,000 bracket that he's talking about. They basically have no way of affording these houses or even taking part in the lottery.
Allow me to take you one step back. I'm seeing, and it's a tie. You see, on one hand, you're telling Kenyans that it would be nice for them to have affordable housing. But how do they afford it? Suppose a young man left school, got some small loan from his uncle or from a bank, and supplied a county government some few things. They have not been paid. They have been listed in CRB. So where will they even get that money to participate in the fund so that they can be put in the lottery to get that affordable housing? So we must get the basics right so that eventually we are there. Imagine somebody who has been declared bankrupt, somebody whose property has been auctioned because they could not service a loan, yet they had supplied the government.
They have not been paid.
They have not been paid.
Yeah.
The pending bills now, according to the National Assembly Budget Committee, is 400 billion shillings. National government 300 billion, county governments 108 billion shillings. Are you telling me that the county government and the national government will be able to pay these guys within today's 6th?
9 years. Before
It will not be possible.
No, it won't happen.
It will not be possible. So what happens? The pending bills increase, even in the next financial year.
Oh, wow. Issues, very tough issues to ponder. Pending bills. They have how many days again to pay?
Very few.
Less than 2 weeks to pay.
That's
Almost
right.